Hi, I'm Jason Martin, the Assistive Technology Specialist for the Blind for the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services. And this is a panel that we wanted to bring together discussing the impact of the pandemic and COVID-19 with individuals with disabilities. The first guest that I have is Mr. Bill Adams. He's the case manager for the blind and orientation and mobility specialist for the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He has an undergraduate from Kent State Universities with Justice Studies and Political Science. And he also has a master's degree from Western Michigan University in Orientation and Mobility. Bill works with a bevy of individuals with visual impairments, adults, children, with assistive technology, with Braille, and naturally with cane use. So I'd like to welcome Bill Adams today. How you doing, Bill?
Oh, sorry, I had it on mute, but good. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm great. I'm great. So let's just get started and kick off. I've got a couple of questions for you. With the pandemic, and before I get to you, because you are a person with a visual impairment, and I am very curious at how you've adapted to COVID-19 and some things that you have. But just for people watching, could you tell us a little bit about what you do on a normal day? And then we'll move to kind of like the pandemic and how that's impacted you.
Okay, on a normal day, I can be either working with adults or working with kids. Um, and when I work with kids, I would actually go to the school, uh, depending on the child, like either just working with them on simple things like getting to and from the cafeteria or uh, setting up their new CCTV or teaching them how to get stuff on their from their teacher on their Chromebook. Just different things like that to intense hands-on training with somebody who is autistic and blind. Uh, you know, Getting them to learn how to walk uh, and even hold the cane. uh, Compare, just that is anything, and I cover all of West Alabama, so that's 13 counties, I believe,
Oh, wow.
that I cover for school children. Uh, and then for adults, I either go to their home or they come to the office. We have a small computer lab here. Uh, Teach them how to use their phone or teach them, how to access their job using assistive technology, do assessments. I also do assessments with kids as well. There's a little bit more specific what I'm trying to figure out, but with adults, the assessment can just be, okay, what type of tint is going to be work best for you in this situation? Uh, or what CCTV is going to fit your needs for this task? Things like that.
So,
So
Bill, it sounds like a lot of the stuff that you're doing is very hands-on and very, integrated with touch and feel. I mean, that kind of plays into a blindness disability, low vision. And I guess, let's start with your most prominent role, which is O&M, orientation and mobility, how a blind person gets around. What adaptations have you used to kind of bring that to people virtually or, when you're at home or socially distanced? How do you even begin to tackle that?
well, a whole bunch of us from ADRS and AIDB that are O&Ms, uh, we actually formed this huge committee to try to figure out how to do such a thing. During this time, there's been a lot of people from other states writing papers on this is what I'm doing, this is how I do it. And of course, you have two different thought processes on how to do that, but you also have to weigh in, okay, how much do we actually teach online? And because we're not there to physically help somebody out during this, because some things are very simple. Okay, getting around your house, I can teach you that just over the phone. or using Zoom and making sure, you know, mom or brother is watching you or things like that, or doing proper human guide technique. Okay, but do I really want to teach you how to go up and down stairs or via Zoom or go go down the street uh, and cross?
So what you're saying is the more dangerous stuff is kind of off limits, right? Like you don't want to do
Exactly,
this stuff without you there, right?
exactly, because it's a liability thing, and also, I mean, where I used to work, we always joked we called it the hand of God, and we would, like if a veteran would walk into the street when they're not supposed to, all of a sudden they would just go and feel like the hand of God pulling them back, or um, they're teetering on the edge of the stair. All of a sudden they're grabbed, or somebody's bracing them in front of them so they don't fall. That sort of thing. Just making sure that they don't get hurt. So there's different things like that.
So a Deus Cain Machina, something like. Anyway, I know that you've had like a lot of success recently during the quarantine, particularly, and for those who are still on lockdown, Alabama hasn't been since June, but you've also done some things about cleanliness or how to work with sanitation. Like, what have you done in that regards to adapt to the pandemic or to help others learn how to do that?
Um, as an O&M, I've actually I'm lucky enough to been taught in both. Who is blind? I've been taught in both forms of O&M. There's something called structure discovery, and then you have this, the standard. Um, so I know both. So I have all two canes, and then actually right before the pandemic, I had to have some knee surgery, so I have the third type of mobility cane for myself as well. So I just did a quick video on, sanitizing a cane, not cleaning a cane, but sanitizing your cane just to make sure that there
What's the
are no,
difference?
to clean them from viruses and protect yourself. Where I worked before, I had one of the veterans. Uh, she was a germaphobe. So she actually pointed this out to me that our folding canes, you should not have a folding cane with only four sections or two sections. It should be three or five sections so that your cane tip does not, when you fold your cane, does not touch your grip. So I've been doing that ever since she pointed that out. Well, then I just read all the different directions on the things, and then looked online how to sanitize the different areas, and looked at really how far down on the cane do you really touch, because the more area that you're disinfecting, the least uh, what do you call it, how much it work, the effectiveness goes down the more that you cover. So okay, looking at, okay, what's the most effective amount that we can use, you know, to make sure that we're cleaning what needs to be cleaned. So then after that, I made a video and described it well, so that it was somebody who is completely blind understands what I was doing, and then also so that it could also be easily turned into directions for people who are deafblind uh, in Braille, and made the video and put it up on Facebook, and I was surprised it actually kind of went viral. I guess it's my first viral post, so I'm like super excited about that.
Hey, Jason, we seem to have lost your audio.
There we go. I'm back.
All right.
Okay, great. We'll take it from the top. How much time do we have, Michael? Because I have not been monitoring that. Maybe. Okay. All right. And we're going back. So, Bill, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions just, about you personally. You have a visual impairment, as do I. We're both similar. We're blood brothers in that regards. But I just want to see, how have you really adapted to the quarantine and the pandemic, should I say? And what's made you more aware or less aware? Like, how has your day to day changed as a person with a visual impairment?
Uh, so I also live with somebody else who is mobility impaired. They are a wheelchair user. So it's so we're both very afraid of getting anything that could possibly put us in the hospital because it's hard for either of us to get around, and also we'd lose that ability to do different things. So we've been really crazy about not going anywhere uh, when we don't have to, and getting food delivered, or using the Walmart pickup, or using curbside pickup. I don't think I have been in a store since uh, March 13th.
Oh, wow. You're a lot
Um,
than I am.
and with that, when I've had to go to a couple of doctor's appointments, um, and so when we go there, we are masked up, and uh, do everything that we can just to make sure that, okay, I'm watching. Okay, what am I touching? Uh, making sure that I don't touch the face. And if you could tell during this uh, interview, like I'm a very hands-on person. My hands are moving all the time, so touching my face was a big one to stop myself from doing. Uh, just and making sure I'm everything's we're washing all the time, making sure that the wheelchair wheels aren't going through anything, and also that we're cleaning wheelchair wheels, and sanitizing canes after use, things like that. And I just touched my face.
How do you think moving forward? Like, one of the questions I had that was just a little bit ponderous, I guess, was, if you're totally blind and you are a braille reader, contact is important. It just really, it very much is. And right now, everything's moving away from contact. How does that make you feel? Just that thought of being less contact, that somebody might be, you know, less apt to give you a sighted guide, or what are your thoughts on that?
It's going to take some adaptation by that person, I believe. We've been seeing a real, emergence of course, the text to speech stuff going on, and then also uh, refreshable braille displays are becoming more and more common. So moving more towards something that's with you, or audible, like your own physical thing that you're always touching, or something that's audible, like um, for indoor travel, using, if you're, instead of using human guide, use uh, Microsoft Soundscape, or the different types of indoor locating, location systems, instead
And,
of relying on human guide, or uh, adjusting your human guide, instead of using holding somebody. um, there's a diagonal cane technique that you can use, um, where you can follow somebody using diagonal cane technique. So using those adaptations yourself instead of relying on others might be
and
the way of doing it.
and Soundscapes is this Microsoft accessibility app. It's a GPS app, right? And help me out with this. Doesn't it like give you beacons that you can set up where it kind of pings? It's like a constant ringtone as you're walking by something, so someone can kind of orient themselves. Say if it's a checkout line, you could put that. Or have you used that a lot?
Yes, I have. There's a couple of systems out there that are like Soundscape, but Soundscape's the one that's been getting the most hype lately. And well, yes, you have little pucks, Bluetooth pucks that you can place, and the more pucks that you have, the better idea that it knows, okay, this is where this puck is compared to your phone and compared to the other puck. So it gives you a directional idea. And as you move and turn with your phone, the sound changes and gives you a more of a directional idea. So when it gets really strong, you know you're pointing straight at the puck.
And can you set those? I mean, without a physical device, can you also set like a type of ping? So, say if you've got a person that's trying to buy groceries during this pandemic, you mentioned like Walmart delivery or Walmart pickup, that you could theoretically get all of your stuff accessible through an app, check out all the products, get it lined up, ready to go. And then, maybe if you have had some guidance before to this desk or, to the customer service desk, you could just ping it and go.
Yes, and all these things have been curbside.
Oh, yeah.
So I've I know one lady here who just lived right outside the zone that Walmart delivered. What she did was she would get in the Uber and have them go into the pickup line because they don't want you to come in. If you're doing pickup, they don't want you to come into the store
Right.
and doing that way. But uh, you can set your own if you don't have the device. One of the pucks that you can place there. Um, it does have some GPS, but you have to have GPS connection, so it only works outside.
Right.
So you could get, directions to the front door of the Walmart or the store, and then use your training to get from the store, from the door to the counter. It it's unfortunately that it's unfortunate, but unless you have this physical device placed at the counter, it's not going to work well because GPS connection is poor, and you go from, you know, I think 3 feet to 30 feet of, accuracy. So that's not going to really help you too much, and it could also at some points fling you all the way out 250 feet outside just because you don't have a direct connection. So
So we're
those are
closed.
the problems with the indoor location system is it's best to have a physical device that you're going towards.
So I guess the last question I want to give you before we part ways, my friend, is if you had something to say to either a trainer or to another individual with a disability going through this time, what would be your advice with working someone at a distance who's blind or visually impaired?
Uh, be extra descriptive. I mean, uh, we all of us blind people, we love our descriptive audio movies and things like that. So, you know, be very descriptive in how you're describing things, and then also to the blind and visually impaired person, it's on you to learn some of these adaptations and adapting yourself and finding what's best and keeping in mind the new normal, as they say, to protect yourself. So, okay, you shouldn't be within 6 feet. Us low, of those with, blind people, not a big deal keeping that 6 feet apart, but, totally blind people keeping that 6 feet apart. But those low vision people, man, we stink at that. We want to see who we're talking to, what we're getting close to,
Okay.
and those sneeze guards are head catchers at different things. So you know, being aware of that's not appropriate anymore. I also use a guide dog, and uh, there's been so many articles out there about guide dogs don't understand social distancing, but yet people will be getting mad at the blind person for getting too close or going down the wrong way down the runway aisle at the grocery store. So
Yeah,
adapt
I
as
didn't
much
even
as you
think about
can.
that. Like those signs aren't very accessible. So, you just have to, I guess, apologize and go, oh, I didn't quite, Travis, your guide dog didn't quite notice the green or red arrow pointing the right way in Walmart or somewhere like that, I guess. Well, just one more thing. I just want to clarify. When you say descriptive, can you give me some examples of what do you mean by be descriptive? Because some people would go, well, I'm being descriptive over there. It's over there. What do you mean by that? Like, give me an example.
Oh, well, I love that you pointed out over there. Over there is a unknown construct to a blind person, and that's that was my mentor's biggest. That was his mantra. An is an intangible construct to a blind person, and he would always say that. So I could be saying it's over there and pointing, in my head is pointing to the right, but my hand is pointing to the left. So you don't know which way I'm actually telling you to go, because you're not seeing that arm, but you might be hearing my head go to the right,
Or
or
even like
or
straight,
vice
right? Like
versa. So
straight.
say to my right or to your left,
Okay.
things like that. Uh, oh, it's probably about 20 steps away or 20 feet away, something like that, just to give them an idea of distance as well.
I think that's great, man. Well, Bill, thank you for joining us today. And, we will be back for the live Q&A shortly. And so for our second interview, we have April Stringer, who reigns from Battle, Birmingham. Her words, not mine. And she's lived there for the entirety of her life. She graduated with me from the Alabama School for the Blind. She earned her bachelor's degree from UAB, majoring in social work, and also earned a master's degree in social work. April, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I thought so.
Yep.
She works for the Department of the Veteran Affairs and has been there for 11 years. Oh, my goodness.
11 years, yep.
Wow.
I know, right?
You're a social worker, and you work in the field of mental health, providing, I'm getting it right here, psychotherapy treatment and case management services for our nation's veterans. And that's just awesome. But I love your intro here. You've worked with a myriad of arenas, including substance abuse, homeless programs, working with the severely mentally ill, working with adolescents, and providing case management services to individuals living with HIV and AIDS.
Yes.
Wow, I thought my resume was good, but I don't know now. I really don't know. And you'll be embarking on bariatric patients combating issues related to eating disorders. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
It's great when you know someone and then you get like this long thing and it's wow.
And when you put it down on paper, it looks more impressive than it really is, because I just consider it just working. And then when I was writing out, I was like, wow, I have done a lot of things. So yeah.
Don't sell yourself short. So let's just get into the nick of it. I mean, how has the symposium that we're at right now is dealing with issues related to COVID-19, the pandemic, and we really wanted to get a broad aspect of people. We just spoke with Bill Adams, who's visually impaired, and I know me and you go way back in the VI field, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're really focusing on mental health. So like, what is how has your job changed at first? That might be a good question for you.
So the biggest change is, for me, not actually physically going into a building and being around people. And I think that resonates with a lot of people, not just in mental health, just people in general. Your normal routine it changes. So for me, it was getting adjusted to, sorry about that. It was being adjusted to being at home 24/7. And for the first couple of weeks, I didn't leave. Like I literally did not leave. I ordered groceries. I, missed out on a lot of things. I did not leave. So it was getting adjusted to being at home. Now, I love my house. I do. But everyone needs a break from a certain thing at a certain time. So I know a lot of people they compared it to being in prison. I don't think my house is terrible to being in prison. But, because I remember when all this stuff first started happening, it had people so scared to even leave their homes because they're like, you could get it and you could die. And so I kind of retreated and came not more so a hermit, but this person who only went outside in the backyard and who just stayed home, and I just was here. So, and I think a lot of people had a lot of time adjusting to that change because it kind of happened so abruptly, sort of like getting your head cut off because you were here and you were living, and then the world changed on you. So not only me, everybody had to adjust to those changes. And unfortunately, change is a good thing, but the way it happened, if it could have been maybe a transitionary period, that would have been lovely, but it wasn't. It's just like the world for us, it just stopped all of a sudden.
And you have children like I do. So, I mean, It's not only that you're at home with them forever. I think I went three months total where they didn't go out, we didn't go out. And it totally changes your outlook. Well,
it does.
How have like some clients that you've taken in, what's been their perception? I mean, give me some different ideas of how they've adapted.
I work with a special population. I work with veterans. And so a lot of my veterans suffer from some pretty significant mental health disorders that it really impedes their way of living. So, when you're talking about somebody who's chronically depressed, they don't leave out the house anyway. So when things change for them, it wasn't much of a change. But what I did find is they became a little bit more irritable and had these more emotional outbursts because their routine did change, but it wasn't for the better. So say, for instance, I have a young lady. She has a myriad of mental health issues, but she has something called dissociative identity disorder. She also has chronic PTSD. She has bipolar disorder. So she has like just a perfect combination of a lot of different things. She's experienced a lot of trauma in her life. So what happened with her, she is a person that would stay home, who wouldn't go out, who would literally get groceries delivered, or she would, do the Walmart pickup. She loved it. But what she didn't like is if she go to do a Walmart pickup and her cleaning supplies weren't there, or her tissue wasn't there, or certain foods that she bought, it wasn't there. So she became very irritable and very agitated. And then that's one side of it. But then I have another side of it where their anxiety really kicks into gear because it causes a lot of uncertainty. And what if I don't go back to work? And what if my job, I don't have a job? And what's going to happen, like you said, with the children? Are they going to go back to school? And what if my computer doesn't pull up what it needs to pull up at work, and I have to go out in the world and get exposed to COVID, and I already have, some comorbidities, and I further expose myself? So the anxiety really, really cranks up on them a lot. But since we've been going through this since March, I think everything's kind of come, start to settle down a little bit. And I'm seeing that more people are getting more acclimated to this way of living. But I still have a lot of veterans who, for lack of better words, kind of bully a system like the VA. I'm actually dealing with a veteran right now who said he's going to stop taking his medications because he wants to come inside the building to see people face to face, and there's no one there to see him. So we have to deal with it's a lot of different factors that you're dealing with, but it's particularly hard for people who suffer with these, mental health issues and going through the pandemic, because the rules that they play by in life, they're not the same. And like I said, even the ones who prefer to stay home, it's getting increasingly difficult to stay home and continue to live the life they're living, because they have children too. They have husbands and wives and girlfriends and things too. and they're impeding on their space. So you're talking about somebody who maybe works from home. I have a veteran who works from home, and those 8 hours when kids are away, wife is away, he's fine, but they're there now. And so
Yeah.
he's really like, like I just wish I can get out, or they could leave or something. So it's everybody's just trying to deal with all the changes that we're going through.
So I know when we were in the height of the pandemic, my wife is a dog groomer, and we would be in the same room. And, I read a strategy was, if you're in close contact with somebody, blame an imaginary coworker. So I would look at whatever poodle or Scottish Terrier that was here, and I go, no, it's not you, Ralph. You stop leaving cups on the counter, just to make us feel a little bit better about it,
Yeah.
And so like what strategies have you told people? And I know that we talked a little bit about how individuals are dealing not only with this, but, with the loss of, because it has hit Birmingham rather hard, but with the loss of loved ones and with this uncertainty. What are some coping strategies that you've kind of relayed to people to get them through it? Like, how do we get back to a normal when we're not back to normal?
So something I encourage a lot of people to do is stick with their schedule, continue that normalcy. So say, for instance, even with me, so I had to be to work at 8. I still have to be to work at 8, but I literally walk 30 feet to my workstation. I tell people to continue to get up, continue to shower, continue your daily routine as if you were going to work, even though you're not. And for some people who got furloughed, and they're like, well, I don't have anything to do. I was like, sure, it's plenty to do. Get up, maintain a routine, and keep a schedule. And I mean, when I say keep a schedule, just like you would where you were at work, except for you're not working. So you'll say from 9 to 10, I'm gonna clean the bathroom, or I'll clean my room, or I'll go outside and do some yard work, or I'll exercise for 30 minutes a day, or learn some new recipes. This gives everybody the opportunity to get a chance to know people. But I also encourage people to, I know we have to social distance, I get it, but social distance in a healthy way. Schedule regularly, like we're doing the Zoom now, schedule regularly Zoom sessions with your friends, your families, your coworkers. Go outside and meet neighbors. I'm going to actually do something like that this weekend. So I cut my grass, and that's my therapy. It keeps me grounded. So my neighbors next door to me, they're an older couple, and I was like, I'll cut y'all grass for you because I'll be out here cutting mine anyway. So, just showing a lot of support and neighborly love. But the main thing is to keep a routine so that your normalcy, even though it's a new normal, you can have that normalcy in your life. Because when things get back to normal, people will have a very difficult time adjusting or assimilating back to the old normal, getting up, going to work, doing what they're supposed to do, because people become lazy, we become complacent. And a lot of times when you haven't been working, it's very hard to get back into the idea of getting up and going to work. So continue doing the same things you were also doing. And also I encourage people to keep a healthy diet because it keeps your mind fresh. So
No, I've followed a lot of your advice that you got to say. Like now see, I've been out of quarantine since June. Like, we've been back at work, and everything you kind of said was on point. It wasn't that I got lazy. I think I was more expedient at home. Like, I was on time every day.
Yeah.
I stayed over.
Yeah.
And I got into this habit to where I would, it's therapy to deal with it, because I mean, even people without mental illness, or a diagnosed mental illness, I think we all carry some piece of something with us, but even without diagnosed mental illness, I needed to find an outlet. So I started smoking barbecue meat, and it was great, putting stuff on the grill all day long.
That's why I encourage a lot of my veterans, and I did this myself. Like I said, my thing was I started working in my yard. And I hate outdoors, but I told people, learn a new recipe. I encourage people to find a childhood activity that they enjoy. So I have a lot of people, they go out and shoot some hoops, or they'll go out literally and play hopscotch. They'll go out looking for books. I have a lot of people that are coloring. They're making crafts. And I had one of my veterans in the military. He did something with engineering. So he's teaching his children how to make flashlights out of household things like batteries, wires, things like that. So, getting in tune with a pleasurable activity that you used to enjoy as a child and a good healthy hobby, because it's easy for people to fall into some negative vices, drinking or drugging or using gambling or being engaging in risque behaviors. It's easy to do that because boredom will set in. And like you said, in your case, you got better, because I've done that too. Like, I found myself working being even more productive at home, but everybody's not able to do that either, So I try to encourage people to find a pleasurable hobby or something that they can engage in and try to do it on a regular basis. So after the pandemic is over, and the world opens back up, you'll still have those things that you enjoy doing, and you'll continue doing it also.
That's really good advice. Now, I got about 3 minutes left with you. And
Okay.
I'm trying to think the best question I can ask you, because there were two. I guess I'll try to make it a twofold question. One was about the anxieties that people have had, and because especially Birmingham, that was really hit hard at first, it's still getting hit hard in some ways. People have lost loved ones. What is some advice that you've given them? And I'm making it a two-parter, and you can combine this however, but what advice would you give to somebody, I guess, similar in your situation, or like the core advice that you would say to help them get through this?
So I've had quite a few of my veterans and, people that I know who've lost loved ones due to COVID, or due to complications, after COVID. The advice that I gave them is hard because everybody's different. A lot of times I ask them to memorialize their loved ones, but they could serve as a message to people to let them know, wear your mask, take safety precautions, do the social distancing, do all of these things because, they've lost a loved one to COVID and they can share the seriousness of it. But that's just kind of hard to say, when you're dealing with loss, because a loss, it doesn't matter if they lost them to COVID or not. It's a loss. It's a loss. Right. I tell people that they need to, have that moment where they're able to grieve. And again, like I said, that normalcy, do not let that stop you, and this is something that I'm not good at grief, and I don't like to really talk about it, but it's a part of life. So it's just part of the life cycle, and it's just something that we all have to deal with outside of COVID. We lose people, whether it's to death, whether it's to marriage, whether it's a friendship that died out, the dog, we lose people, and it's just part of a life cycle. I look at it like a cell, cells, you're born a cell. When the process of living is dying, so eventually we're all gonna die. So I think that, and I normalize people's feelings, like it's okay to feel like this, you should feel like this. But when we're talking about related to COVID, a lot of them, I tell them, you can serve as a messenger, really, to tell people, don't take this thing lightly, take it seriously. And I get a lot of people saying, well, it's political. And I go, I don't think it's political. I want to say it's science. It's a virus. It's nothing political about it. Do everything that you can do to keep yourself safe.
You're giving them that purpose. Yeah.
Right. And I said, and it's also a way to memorialize your loved ones, because your loved ones, more likely than not, they didn't want to catch COVID and they didn't want to die from it. So you're serving as a messenger through them, like you have a voice through them, So that's how I tell people who deal with it. And ironically, I've had about 7 veterans to lose somebody to COVID. And actually, one of my veterans, it was her aunt and her uncle. And they were up in Chicago, right? And she had just left there, and they came down and got real sick real fast. And they end up passing away. So it's a lot. But like I said, the anxiety that we experience anyway outside of COVID, I just think it just really got ramped up because we have all these new guidelines and standards that we must follow. And some of us do not like to follow rules. So not even the COVID rules, they just don't like them. So it's very difficult for people to say, okay, I'm going to do this and actually do it, because my opinion, and I'm not a doctor, but I am a healthcare worker. I try to do everything they tell us to do to save our lives,
Right.
But for those who are dealing with all the anxiety and the worry about it, just do it. Just do it, and just know this is not going to be, a permanent thing. This is only temporary, and when we get through it, we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
I think that's great, April. Well, thank you for joining us today. It
Thank
was
you
awesome,
for
as awesome
having
as I thought it
me.
would be.
Thank you. Thank you.
So our third guest today is going to be Graham Sisson, and I've got a bio for Graham here, and he was appointed to the United States Military Academy in West Point in 1982, and he was scheduled to report to cadet basic training, but was injured on June 27th, 1982, in a head-on motor vehicle collision with a drunk driver, which left him with a closed head injury and a permanent paralysis from the waist down and a full-time wheelchair user. In January 1983, Dr. Graham Sisson entered the University of North Alabama. He graduated summa cum laude in 1987 with a BS in accounting and minors in English and history. He received the Keller Ivy highest GPA and Turris Fidelis highest award to graduating senior keys upon his graduation. Very, very acclaimed here, Graham. In his senior year, he was elected SGA president. While at UNA, Dr. Sisson was inducted. Oh my God, hang on. Michael, you're going to edit that. While at UNA, Dr. Sisson was inducted to the Omicron Delta Kappa Leadership Honorary and Sigma Tau Delta English Honorary fraternities. He was also a member of the Alpha Tau Omega fraternity. After his graduation from UNA, Dr. Sisson attended Vanderbilt Law School and was graduated in 1990 with a JD and was licensed in September 1990. Prior to being appointed Deputy Attorney General and an Assistant Attorney General with the state of Alabama, Dr. Sisson worked with several Birmingham law firms. He now serves as the state's ADA coordinator and Assistant Attorney General with the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services. He was reappointed by Governor Kay Ivey as the director of the Governor's Office of Disability and state ADA coordinator. Dr. Sisson served as an adjunct law professor teaching a disability law course at Birmingham School of Law and taught a doctoral course in disability law and history at Auburn University. Dr. Sisson received his doctorate in rehabilitation from Auburn University in 2016. Graham's hobbies are vegetable gardening and woodworking. He's also a certified scuba diver. And Graham, I guess we'll just get started through that introduction. Some of those things I didn't know about you, and I think they're pretty rocking. Let's just talk a little bit about what have been your experiences with individuals and, being in these acclaimed roles that you are around the state. How have you seen COVID-19 and this pandemic affect individuals with disabilities?
Well, I mean, many people with disabilities have conditions. Many are immunosuppressed, so they're at higher risk of getting COVID, and many are fearful of what returning to work would do around other people. And the questions are going to be, are the usual precautions such as face masks, hand washing, and social distancing going to be sufficient to protect them from getting the COVID-19 virus? And that's the big questions. And so there's certain accommodations, issues that arise. Some people request accommodation because of COVID-19. And one of those accommodations, of course, is going to be telework or working at home. And telework or working home isn't going to work for everybody because some jobs can't be done from home. Some jobs are hands-on where you have to meet with people in person, or other jobs require that employee who wants to work at home be supervised one-on-one. Some employees may be probationary employees, and probation employees may not be eligible to work at home because of the supervision. In some jobs, employees have to receive one-on-one training or be mentored to learn that job, and it's hard to mentor somebody working at home. Because some jobs require that one-on-one meeting with folks, that can't be done over the phone, that can't be done from even through the computer, such as devices as platforms like Zoom. So those are issues. And really, the issues for people with disabilities that I've seen, they're going to be physical in nature, physical barriers to people with disabilities. And then the other one's going to be, for some people, it's going to be what I call communications access. And this would include people who are deaf and people who are blind, issues related to communication. So, and many people with disabilities, and I was always curious, is it hard for blind folks to maintain a 6 feet distance if they can't see around them? Okay. That's a question that comes to mind. And then some people with disabilities have personal care workers. And a lot of personal care workers, the nature of receiving that personal assistance doesn't allow 6 feet of distance. But would a face mask be sufficient? And then there's issues around face masks themselves. One of those precautions that every entity is using now, and now we have a statewide requirement from the governor that you must wear a mask when you're out in public. And public spaces would apply to, to a lot of the areas where somebody works. So those are issues. Whether, sometimes accommodations are around whether or not somebody's going to be required to wear a mask. Some disabilities make it very difficult to wear a mask, or it won't work for somebody with certain types of disabilities. So those are some things I like to discuss in more detail. So some of the physical barriers I mentioned, some of the communications access barriers. The ADA imposes a duty to effectively communicate. And typical face masks, if somebody is deaf or hard of hearing, don't allow for somebody who reads lips to be able to see somebody's lips move.
Right.
And then the other issue around face mask, some people cannot tolerate that face mask touching their face. So that issue comes up.
I have a beard, and it totally throws me off too, Graham. Not a disability related thing, but just the beard really gets me.
That's exactly right. So there's alternatives to face mask. I mean, there's the face mask with the windows, the clear window. They're making them bigger, and there's, of course, as an alternative to face mask, could be a face shield. A face shield doesn't provide as much protection as a face mask, but it will keep that person from transmitting, if they cough or sneeze, from transmitting to somebody else. Remember, when you wear a face mask, you're protecting not only yourself, but other people.
Right.
There's something under the Americans with Disabilities Act called direct threat. And that's a substantial risk of harm to somebody else or yourself that can't be reduced below the level of direct threat to some type of accommodation. And so there might be direct threat issues around not wearing a face mask or some other type of protection. And every job has a requirement that you not pose a threat to other people on the job or to yourself. And it's basically a safety risk. It's based on objective criteria, or what we call facts. It's not speculative. You know that somebody is going to harm themselves or somebody else. And so that's why those the face mask and the hand washing, social distances were implemented as precautions. And people with disabilities need to follow those precautions too, as much as they can. So in telework, sometimes telework is a way for somebody that's immunosuppressed to remove themselves. But that's only going to work if they can actually do their job at home. And it's clear from all the guidances that I've read that somebody has to actually be able to do the job from home and do all aspects of the job, or we call the major parts of the job or essential functions. So what questions you got? I kind of gave you a quick overview. I can go into more detail on some of those items that I mentioned, or other questions or things that you want to bring to the forefront here.
Well, I guess just asking me personally, this is one thing that we've had as a reoccurring question throughout all of these interviews is how has it affected you personally? Like, how has it changed your day to day and what you've been doing? What obstacles have you faced in particular?
Well, I mean, I think the obstacles I've faced is just being limited in movement like other folks, and having to stay at home more, and making sure, because I have a condition that my immune system is compromised somewhat, so I have to be more careful. So when I'm going to meet with people, I'm maintaining those social distances. I'm wearing my face mask, but other than having to wear a face mask and some of the other things, limiting where I go and how long I stay there and things like that, that's the way it's mainly affected me. I've continued to go to work every day, but I've abided by those precautions. And I do it even when family members come over. I'm following all those precautions. I knew a worker who they at work, they did the face mask, the hand washing, they did the social distance. They had some family members come visit them, including one of their children at home, and none of them wore face masks, including this person, and she got the virus, COVID virus, from that. So you have to follow it all the time. That can be difficult. You can't let your guard down anytime. So.
Right. I could see, like that's kind of been also a reoccurring theme is that, letting your guard down and something going on, because I think we all want to do this. And, another question I just kind of have to ask, and this is, it's been a popular question, or it's been something that's come up a lot. And that is individuals, the governor did place a mask order, but it excluded certain health impairments. And have you noticed or seen a theme of people trying to, I don't know, get out of the mask order by, saying, I have information like that, or, I have a health impairment, but I'm not disclosed to say it. There's been a lot of confusion about that. And I'm not trying to get too off topic here, but
that's not off the topic at all. I think I was the chief poll inspector for Von Mox in Birmingham for the elections on July 14th. We had
right.
people come to the polling place that didn't want to wear masks. And the guy said, some guy laughingly said, I have a disability and I'm not wearing a mask, but he didn't have a disability. Okay.
Right.
And he was just saying it because he knew we couldn't ask him about his disability. But, private businesses, and this is developing, okay, private businesses, can ask questions related to disability, in my opinion, okay. I'm not the government. I'm not a court of law. It's what we lawyers call is non-binding information. But if somebody comes in there and they say, I don't want to wear a face mask, I have a disability, then, that's a reasonable modification of policy. That's the type of accommodation it would be. They're going to change their policy about requiring a face mask, not to require this person to wear a face mask. Well, a lot of times, if it's a hidden disability, you need documentation that they have a disability in order to provide an accommodation. So the question is, but how does that play out if somebody's just coming into your restaurant to get something to eat? Are you going to go in there and go through the whole accommodation process? Is it really going to be feasible to do that? That's what makes it tricky. It doesn't really work in that kind of setting where the services are quick and it's going to be over quickly. It's going to be about an hour or so and they're there and they're gone. Are you going to say, okay, well, let me come back here and meet with you in this back room that has the lights that shine on you to interrogate you? And they say, well, tell us, give us proof of your disability so that we're treating this as a reasonable accommodation issue. It's not going to happen like that. I think people are going to have to respect other people. No, it's not just for them. It's to protect other people. I mean, I don't know if we can become a selfless society, but that's what this really is about, is taking care of not only yourself, but other people too. You've heard the saying that we're all in this together.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, keep calm and carry on.
Thing. What?
Keep calm and carry on.
Keep calm and carry on. But there's something I didn't bring up before is access to medical care. If you have a chronic condition like I do, I have to go to the doctor more frequently sometimes, depending on what's going on. But lately, I've been afraid to go to the doctor because I didn't want to expose myself to all the other people. So I've done a lot of more telemedicine, which is effective for some things, not effective for others. So I got to be really careful not to get sick or anything where I need to go see a doctor. Or
Right.
even if somebody with significant condition had to go to hospital, people are nervous about going to the hospital. So that's the way it affects people with chronic conditions like mine, is medical care. So I think that's a big point of not really contention, but a point of concern.
Well, Graham, we don't have much time left, but in the last question, it's kind of been my ending question for everyone, is what would you say, I mean, what would be your unifying remarks to individuals with disabilities during this time? And what would be your best advice to give them during this time in a pandemic, I guess, from your position as a lawyer, as a person, an advocate for people with disabilities? What would be your advice to an individual during this time, I guess?
Well, the best thing to do would be to stay at home as much as possible. And if you work, make sure that you maintain that separation. You follow all precautions, wash your hands, wear a mask. And if you can't wear a mask, wear a face shield. And make sure that, you don't, that if you're riding in a car with somebody, everybody wears a mask. Insist that other people around you wear a mask or remove yourself. Don't place yourself in situations where you're going to be large groups of people. Try to eliminate some of the risk factors for contracting this, because it's serious, and people are dying from it. You don't want to be one of those statistics. Sorry, I don't mean to be a downer, but I think people need to take, my advice to folks with disabilities is to take this seriously, exercise the precautions, do what you need to do.
I agree. I think that's great advice. Graham, thank you for doing an interview with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope I covered what you needed me to. So.
Well, I think too, we're going to have a live Q&A here shortly after this. And so I'm sure our audience will ask quite a few questions to you guys. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Thank you.